The elephant in the room is this paradigm shift, which is just basically mission critical, low hanging fruit with no value add. So seal the deal, gather the troops, and let's aim for the win-win.
Copy.
Roger that, copy.
Hi, I'm Tracy.
Hi, and I'm Faye, and welcome to More Better with Tracy and Faye.
Today, Faye and I are going to be talking about buzzwords. Buzzwords and other cliches, you know, those things that enter into your writing or into your speaking, and we use them and we overuse them, and maybe we don't even know that we're using them. But here's a hint. If you use out-of-the-box thinking, meaning innovative, you're not right. Right, Faye? Like, what are some of those buzzwords that you see that make you crazy?
My favorite one that I love to hate is synergy. Synergy. I don't know what it means. It's synergy, like together. But I don't know. I don't know what it means. But yeah,
I once had I worked at a company for 5 minutes, and was a startup company doing, I still don't know what, but the head, he got us all around the table and he slammed his hand down. He said, synergy. And I quit within, I don't know what this means. I don't know what
you quit because of buzzwords.
I quit because of buzzwords. Not just that, but it didn't help. So, but let me ask you this in all seriousness. We use buzzwords, we use cliches. Is it always bad, do you think?
Always bad. Always is quite an extreme, but I think they're bad when they lack sort of that authenticity or originality, right? And I feel that like buzzwords can become this sort of, curtain that sort of excludes people rather than include them. Because I believe that, communication is all about including people, making the content accessible. I looked up the definition of buzzwords, interestingly enough, and it's from Merriam-Webster, and it said, an important sounding, usually technical word or phrase, often of little meaning, used to chiefly impress. And I think that that's the heart of why they don't work, because if you think about that definition, the premise is about trying to impress people. It's not about trying to connect people or trying to make something accessible. How about you? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think you're right. And I will also admit that I get sucked in by those words all the time. If I read that something is innovative, I go, oh, well, if it's innovative, I should look into it. And we were laughing earlier, we're talking about things that like smart, well, because we all know what smartphones are, but now everything is smart. I downloaded a countdown clock for my computer here, and it's the smart clock. And you were like, as opposed to a stupid clock? Oh my God, that's one of those words. Everything is smart. You got a smart watch, you got a smart fridge, you got a smart lamp. I don't know. And I feel like one of the things that buzzwords does is it like limits all of our vocabularies. There's like so many great words out there, but we just fall back on those buzzwords because they're familiar. We think they kind of convey what we want to convey. And I think your point about wanting to impress is a really valid one. And some of those words that come to mind about I'm going to be impressive is disruptor, disruptive, disrupting. That's like the new word. If I'm doing something that no one else has thought about before, I'm a disruptor. Or if I'm doing something and I want people to think no one else has done it before, I'll call myself a disruptor. But it doesn't communicate anything of value to the people on the other side. I know in the different industries that I've worked in over my career, they all have their internal language and buzzwords. Like I started out in the oil industry, and when oil was cheap and nobody could afford to do anything. So what did they do? They were just shedding assets to get all this expense off their books. It was called right sizing. And in terms of looking for opportunity for more revenue, it was low-hanging fruit. And these were those buzzwords used back in the early 90s. So if you're using them now, really, you got to stop. You just got to stop. Because that is one thing about buzzwords and cliches is I think that they have a best before date. Like they expire. At a certain point, they expire. And if you weren't part of the first wave of using them, then I think you ought to stop, and don't go and use a cliche from the 1990s if you're trying to communicate something here in the 2020s.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the other thing I'd add to that is, regardless of that language, that whether it's an organization or an industry or whatever is using those buzzwords, if you will, or you use a little bit of that, you leverage some of that jargon.
Word. Leverage.
I think there's always room for real words, right? I think at the heart of all of our communication is that it sounds like a human. It sounds like we're being authentic, we're being real, that we care about whatever that content, or we're trying to connect people and make it as accessible as possible. So you can still use bits and pieces, of course, because you're in a culture and you want to, just like you would be in any country that you sort of get parachuted in, you want to understand how that language shapes our culture. But there's always room for authenticity. There's always room for that connection. I wonder if we should play a little game. Like, what if we challenge each other to make want a challenge? I don't know if you're up for a challenge. What do you
I'm
think?
up for a challenge, although I
Okay.
think you we talked about this, people, and I think Faye thought about it and I didn't. So I'm coming in cold here.
Oh
See, what's up?
no. Okay. All right.
Uh-oh.
Here we go.
Okay.
All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna, say a phrase full of some buzzwords, and maybe let's talk about how would we rephrase that.
All right.
That sound good to you, Tracy?
Sounds
Okay.
great.
All right. So here's one. You probably have heard this all the time. As a result of right-sizing the organization during these unprecedented times of financial insecurity, Joe Smith has left the organization. We wish him well in his future endeavors. I'm sure those of you who are listening have seen, read a very similar organization in your inbox morning of, whatever announcement from the CEO.
Yeah.
What do you think, Tracy? How would you reword that?
I would reword it focusing on, is it Joe? Is it Joe who's
Yeah,
getting
Joe. I
Joe's
know he
getting
left.
Joe. Poor Joe.
I
Did
know.
he left? Did he leave, or was he
Exactly.
we don't know. Well, I think one of the mistakes that organizations made is and trust me, I've written this stuff before, is you frame things to death, and at the bottom you're like, by the way, Joe's no longer here.
Yeah.
But the point is, if Joe, in his role at the organization or her role at the organization, is important enough to warrant a message, and then don't bury it in the crap. Just say, let's say I'm the CEO. I'm writing today to let you know that Joe Smith is no longer with the organization. They have contributed tremendously to the growth of the company through whatever area they worked in. Their contributions are valued and they will be missed on a personal level. And stick it with that. Don't be doing, we're doing it for all these big lofty reasons. We're going to tell you a little bit of bad news. Yeah. Dive in. Don't insult people's intelligence by overframing.
Don't bury the lead. Don't bury the lead.
Is that also a cliche? Bury the lead. If you're not in
I guess so. I don't know. I think
you really know what burying the lead, and you would spell it LEDE, which is the other thing that would be journalism.
That's another topic, I think.
Another topic. Okay, so I'm going to give you one. These buzzwords are showing up a lot in resumes.
Oh, resumes. All right. Maybe our own resumes.
Maybe ours, right? We are out of the box thinkers. Well, okay, so I'm writing my cover letter. And I say, I would be a tremendous asset to your organization due to my out of the box thinking and focus on the bottom line.
Tremendous asset. Yeah. Like, are we really assets? Like, we're people, right? Like that. Yeah, I would just so that would probably be my first draft. So maybe I've written that, right?
Maybe you wrote that.
We've all written it. Like, hands up if you've written it. Yeah, I've written something like that. Fine. Guilty. But I think like my second draft is, let's focus on what what I can contribute to your organization. Hey, here are the skills I have, right? I'm excited to hear from you, or I'm excited to share X, Y, and Z. I don't think, what was the last bit again? Read it again.
Oh,
Or sorry.
Remember it, 57-year-old woman here. Remember
Sorry.
what you said 3 minutes ago?
I can't remember.
I would be a tremendous asset to your organization due to my out of the box thinking and focus on the bottom line.
Yeah. Out of the box thinking. What does that mean?
Couldn't tell
Sometimes the box is good. I like the box, right? So
you.
tell me what exactly are you contributing? What do you mean when you say out of the box? Is it that you bring a different perspective? Do you think you can focus on the sort of bottom line? It's like, do you have a history of reducing costs? Do you have a history of increasing revenue? Like, let's talk about those things, right? And reflect that in your cover letter, resume, whatever that is. If you start to use like those types of words, it, like, trust me, it does not make you sound smart. If I was a recruiter, I've never been one, but if I was a recruiter, I'd be like, am I passing this over to the hiring manager? I have no idea like how much they're going to, what value they bring to the organization. So that's what I would focus on.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with saying you're an innovator and then say why. Like, give the proof. There's got to be proof there. There has to be something to back up the claim. And I think that's a lot of mistake. It's a mistake a lot of people make on resumes. I haven't been a hiring or a recruiter, but I have hired a lot of people and recently have had reason to read cover letters and resumes. And I tell you, the ones that use that kind of language, I don't even bother with, because for me, it makes me think that that person isn't going to be forthright, that they aren't interested in authenticity. And that would concern me in terms of being a hiring manager. I go like, I want to know who this person is. I don't want to just know that they can use big words. Another challenge for me?
Oh yeah, I think I do. Okay, here's one. Our new products embody a seamless design and cutting edge technology, providing value added optimization to your organization's systems at the end of the day.
Wow.
I know I tried to squeeze them all in there.
You know what? I don't think there's any word in there that can stand alone. I think just together, it just creates this big
synergy,
mountain of cliche that I just like bite into and spit out.
Synergy creates that synergy.
Yeah, the synergy. Buzzwords. That was something else. Holy smokes. I have totally seen these words like everywhere. You see it all over social media, because it's, those are the headline grabbers.
Yeah.
And I do react to that sometimes. I probably wouldn't react to that, but I do go to those places and then I read them, and they almost never deliver on the promise of such a lofty tagline or whatever this is. If this is trying to get people to click through to your site so they can buy your product, it might get the click-throughs, but the product has to back it up.
Exactly.
I would, what would we say about this? Okay, so if I was talking about a new product, is it an improvement of the old product, or is it something brand new? And so let's say it's our new products embody a seamless design and cutting edge technology. That's just so terrible. I'm just looking, I'm like, how would I make that better? I'd make it better by deleting the whole thing. And I would say what my product does. I would say, how will my product help you, the person? The fact that something has seamless design and cutting edge technology doesn't mean I want to use it or I have use for it. I've got all sorts of stuff that I use and I love, and I don't know if it's seamless design or cutting edge technology. I just know that it works.
Exactly.
I know that it does what I need it to do. So I would just never say anything like this ever. I would fix it by tossing it out and saving people the pain of having to read it. But you got to talk about what something does for the person. How does it contribute to their life? Who really cares if it's cutting edge design unless you're talking to other designers for an award for designs? As a person, a potential user, that really is, it's not meaningful for me.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So I have learned over the years that people remember really only three things. So as much as we have been delightful, there's only three things that people will, and in our opinion, ought to take away from this session, and why buzzwords are not really the place to end up in your communications. So number one, if you catch yourself using a buzzword or a cliche, ask yourself, as Faye just said, why? Ask yourself, why are you using this? And unless people fully understand what it means and will use that as a meaningful piece of information on which to make a decision or change a behavior, then take it out. Number two, Faye.
Oh, sorry.
She's compelled.
I was so like, so interested in if there's another way to say it that doesn't include the buzzword or cliche, then use that, right? Again, like sometimes buzzwords, cliches act as a shortcut, and I get it. But sometimes, in your second draft, take it out and see, does that phrase, content, sentence still make sense? And if it does, then you're good, right? If it doesn't, and you need to use it because you need to use it to connect, to communicate something, or if you think it will increase understanding of whatever the content is, then okay.
Yeah. And I think the final thing to remember, to take away from this, is that using buzzwords and cliches do not make you sound lofty, smart, and they certainly don't make you sound original. So if you're using them for that reason, stop. Because really, not only does it not do all those things, it can and often does have the opposite kind of reaction, where it just makes you seem unoriginal and maybe not that bright.
Exactly. All right.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. As always, it has been a blast talking about writing with my pal Faye.
That's right, Tracy. I'm a blast.
Absolutely.
All right. So we hope everyone also had a blast. Until next time, goodbye. I'm Tracy and Faye.